Do we need to go back to Charlemagne to tie the bow on Charlemagne?
No, not really. I mean, he's great for his own thing, Charles the Great. I'll give you one quick anecdote again, because it shows you the games they play. So it's known that he and Harun al-Rashid, the Caliph, the Abbasid Caliph, had good relations, okay? And people use this often as, see?
And where was that Caliph based?
Baghdad.
Okay.
Yeah. The Abbasid Caliphate. And we're talking now, the year 800 or a little after. And people will always show you, it's, Islam and Christians got along. You got two emperors, or a caliph and an emperor, and they were friends, et cetera, and they gave gifts to one each other. But when you dig in and you read the chronicles, and I quoted, I'm pretty sure in Sword and Scimitar, I discuss the chronicler of Charlemagne. He makes it perfectly clear that the reason Charlemagne was being nice and reaching out to Harun al-Rashid was almost like he was bribing him to be good to the Christians under his authority in Egypt, in Iraq, in the Islamic world, because there were so many Christians. So he says that, the chronicler, he says the reason he sought out friendships was so he can make the plight of Christians living in those regions less, and he can help them. Okay, so you see how, again, that is omitted, but we're told about, look, they got along, because Muslims and Christians always get along. So that's, I can leave it at that with Charlemagne.
So then let's go to the Crusades.
Yeah.
This is quite a whistleblow tour. So it's 1095.
So 1095, but we have to start a little earlier to give context. So, everything I discussed was during the rise of the Arab Empire, and it went through iterations. You had the Umayyads, and then you had the Abbasids, which I just mentioned. And then sometime after that, the Abbasids start importing Turkic slaves and Islamizing them. Slave soldiers, okay? Like the Janissaries and the Mamluks. And long story short, before long, the Turks become very Muslim, and they become Sunni Muslims, which is important because we're going to talk a little bit about Shias. And eventually they take over, and they still keep the caliphate, the Abbasid, but he's more of a puppet figure, and the real power is the Seljuk Sultan. All right. Now, during this time, especially from like 1050 to 1090, okay, right before the First Crusade, these Seljuks are running amok. Okay, so the persecution and the destruction of Christians that I mentioned earlier under the Arabs, times 10. I mean, now it's horrific. Okay, they start in Armenia, Greater Armenia, which is, far, what we would say Eastern Anatolia. And according to the records, I'm thinking of Matthew of Edessa, who was a contemporary, they were just killing tens of thousands of Christians, Armenians, Greeks, okay, and burning every church in Ani, which was the capital at the time of Armenia. It was known as the city of 1,001 churches. They ritually burned down every church, destroyed every crucifix. I tell you that to also underscore, because a lot of people will tell you, okay, the Turks, people were warring, it's different tribes, and they try to, minimize the religious element. So that's why I'm telling you that in their own sources, it's very clear that they did what ISIS would do. They symbolically were trying to denigrate Christianity. They would destroy churches. They would take the greatest cross of the greatest church and send it as a war trophy to Baghdad, to the Caliph. Okay, so my point is, it wasn't just warfare. It had that jihadist ideological component. Okay, which again, historians like to just ignore as some sort of, whatever, but it's in the sources. And they were also in the Holy Land. You had pilgrims that were always going to the Holy Land, even though it was a hard venture, and they would get persecuted even before that under the Arabs in the 7th, 8th, 9th centuries. Now the Turks really took a new level. And, they would attack the pilgrims. They would extort even more money than they had to pay. There's one incident that happened in 1065, which really was a scandal. They attacked a large German pilgrimage, and they gang raped a nun. And, made everyone watch it, like really horrific stuff. They would go in churches and disembowel people and just smear the blood on the altar, again, as a form of mockery. Okay, so this is what's building up towards the First Crusade. And then it really gets bad after the Battle of Manzikert, which is one of my main battles also in my book, Sword and Scimitar. And the Christians again lose.
Where is that battle?
It's in Manzikert, which is actually close to Armenia in Asia Minor. The Roman emperor at the time went again, like Yarmouk, they went with a large army trying to stop the Seljuk Turks, and they lost. And after that, they just completely ran amok all westward, and now they're attacking all Asia Minor, of course. I mean, Turkey, what we call, now it's Turkey because it got conquered during this time. And Asia Minor, by the way, so Turkey, when you hear Turkey, you think, okay, it's a Muslim nation. This was such a Christian nation that, St. Paul's letters, most of them go there. Asia Minor.
Ephesus,
Turkey, yeah. A lot of them. And so now it's all conquered, and now they're right next to Constantinople, and they're on the verge of actually reaching and getting into the European mainland. And the emperor, the Roman emperor at the time, Alexis, he calls for aid from the Franks and the Europe. And he had friends there and, some nobles, and they all got together. And long story short, Pope Urban II at the Council of Clermont in 1095 in November, he basically stood up and he told everything that was happening. He mentioned everything I'm telling you, all the desecrations of churches, all the rape of women, and the forced Islamization of children, and the disemboweling of Christians. Very graphic stuff, okay, and which is in a lot of sources. So it's not one guy made it up. And that's it. And they all cried out Deus vult, which Mr. Hegseth has a tattoo of, which means God wills it, right? And that was it. They went. So if you asked earlier historians, in the 1800s, they would tell you the Crusades were motivated by love. They were actually, and it comes out in some of the sources where the Crusaders were moved by Christ's injunction to love your fellow man as much as yourself and to love God. So they were loving God because they wanted to go and liberate the Holy Sepulchre. They wanted to liberate the Holy Land, which was very important. Again, this is something modern people don't understand, but place was important. Holy sacred land was something that was, very important. So they wanted to go and liberate it from Muslim control, and they wanted to also protect fellow Christians. And now, your average person, you hear the word crusade, it's such a diabolical, evil thing, evil venture.
But that marks an interesting turning point, even from the Christian point of view, from this, let's say, turn the other cheek mentality to we're going to protect our fellow Christians by killing others.
Yeah, so the whole issue, this goes back to the concept of just war, which really one of the name that always gets thrown out there, and it's the chief articulator, they would say, and proponent is Augustine, St. Augustine, who lived in the 4th century, okay, or was it 5th century? So he's way before all this, and to him and to almost every other doctor of the church and theologian, it was okay to fight back. And, they would cite things like, a Roman centurion comes to Jesus, and Jesus heals his servant. And then Jesus, what does Jesus do when he does a miracle for someone? He tells them to repent, right? Change your way. He didn't tell this guy, hey, put your sword away, stop killing. I mean, this guy was a centurion. He oversaw the bloodshed, a lot of bloodshed. Jesus didn't say anything to him. Okay, so also John the Baptist, when people came to him and a bunch of soldiers came to him saying, what must we do? He didn't tell them leave the army. He said, don't be content with your pay. Okay, so a lot of these were understood by early church theologians as justifying just war theory. As long as the war is not about, conquests and enforcing whatever, my will on you. If I'm defending my land, that was 100% Christian. Okay. And this is why, so if you don't understand everything I've been saying, if you didn't hear this, then how is Crusades just war? Because what you see is a bunch of Europeans going to Muslim territory. What's just in that? But if you know the truth, which is, well, that was Christian territory, and they were killing Christians still and destroying Christian lands and holy sacred places, then it did become part of the just war theory. You see what I'm saying?
But it's 300 years since that it had been Muslim.
Yeah. But I mean, to their thinking,
to their point of view,
and it was still full of Christians and. I mean, I don't think they went by statutes of limitations, right? They didn't think that way, So,
right? Okay.
So in their mind, they still rationalized it, but specifically it was because they were killing Christians and attacking Christians' places. Okay, so that was it. Even if it wasn't Christian beforehand, I think they would have just war theory would cover the logic. Why are you killing innocent Christians?
Thanks for watching this clip from the Winston Marshall Show. You can click here to watch the full episode, and for more clips like this one, don't forget to subscribe. And as always, be well.